Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. We are now assembling the Afterburner frame. As you can see here, we have the instruction guide right here. It tells you what each and every component is, but also it is sort of necessary because there's a lot of parts, both written in Chinese and American and US. Here are the bottom plate, and here is the mid plate. Unlike most other builds, where you put your standoffs in here and begin to assemble the motors, this must be assembled in a different way. A lot of forward planning has to be done, and each thing that you assemble has to be planned out. For instance, first of all, I have found it best to assemble the motor arms like so. And then usually you would assemble it to the bottom plate, but not the case. You build up your bottom plate, and then you build up your top plate separately. We put our ESC, we have soldered. We've got our capacitor in the bottom here, and it will go here. For the air unit, we needed to do an adapter that will go from the air unit to this plug here, which the Speedy Bee uses. It plugs right in here. And we used a pinout chart to tell us where to hook up the Crossfire Nano, which is what we're using right here. We are further along in this build. We now have the top plate has now been joined with the bottom plate. Now, before doing that, we had to ensure that we had passed everything through this area down here, such as the antennas. We have two of them because we're using the O4. We have to make sure that we have run the camera up through the bottom as well. So here's our O4 camera. We also have to make sure that the O4 air unit's wire is also run down through here. So as you can see, there's a lot to consider when putting the top plate on. So here, this will be mounted down here to the bottom plate. And then this TPU will go over the top. So right now we've gotten two screws here. These are deliberately long, so they will attach the top cover. Here we have our flight controller, and we solder up our controller of choice, which in this case is Crossfire. And then we will be running them through the holes here and assembling them accordingly. The Crossfire antenna has also been installed. Normally it is longer, but apparently what iFlight uses is longer antenna to hook up to the RX receiver mounted inside here. However, we do not have that, and we will just go ahead and mount the receiver on the inside of the arm out of the way. And so we are ready to progress forward with this assembly. And as you can see, soldering of the wires to the motor wires to the ESC is rather the last thing we do rather than the first. It is helpful that I do have a pattern that I am following that I have to look at, and that is this O3 unit, CDL3 camera. And I simply have removed the cover from it, and you can see how they have constructed it. This is a bind and fly, 2 raw, and iFlight is selling it. So I acquired this a while ago, and there's a review video on that. The one below here is the O4 unit that I am creating. Presently, as the dating of this video, iFlight nor 2 raw do not have a bind and fly O4 unit. Bind and fly setup like I am making here. So if you choose to make such a unit yourself, hopefully this video is going to be helpful. We have our Crossfire here attached, as we said, all very neatly along here. The motor wires are not attached yet, but the side panels have been. And then we're going to have crossbars attaching across here as well, standoffs. The wires have been neatened up. The O4 air unit goes underneath here, goes underneath, and then goes in there. take special attention to the O4 camera. Originally, the O3 attaches here. Let me show you. See how the O3 little block of rubber here and attaches here. You'll see it's quite a bit smaller as well. The O4 is gigantic. Who knew? And so what I did is incisioned into the carbon fiber and secured it that way with the rubber here as being able to add some cushioning. Same thing over here. The other hole is not as far as this, so disregard that. It's actually somewhere here, but it's too close to the edge to make an incision. 2 screws hold this on at the moment, and it is very, very secure. There is no possible issue with that. With the O3, there was no jello, and I don't expect to have any jello in here as well. There is rubber that it is compressed between, and this is very secure as it is. So all that 2RAW would need to do to adapt this is just create a different plate that has more room on it, and then be able to provide a larger rubber here, and then screw through there, just like the O3 has. So in essence, all they would need to do is sell 2 different plates here that the customer would, if they wanted to use their existing one and replace it with an O4, they just sell them these 2 plates, and then they just unscrew these and then install the camera here. And yes, they would need to take the top plate off from the bottom plate in order to get it run up here, and of course to install it in the bottom here. There is no changes. These holes are existing, and it just screws in the bottom here with the antennas coming out. You just run them up here, and that's what I'll show you what I'm going to how I'm going to mount them. But as far as the camera goes, it is relatively simple fix for this. So they don't have to remake the frame or anything. You just need to remake these 2 plates here, allowing more room to install the O4. What I have here, if you want to do it, is very easy and very secure to do your existing modifications to your O3. Okay, we are at the point of this build that we have soldered all the motors. Feast your eyes upon those solder joints. Nice and shiny. Really well secured. Nice and shiny. All right, we have secured the motors. We have secured the wires. And we have also made a place for these 2 antennas. 2 holes here, and that is where the 2 antennas will emerge from the craft. Here we have the O4 camera, solidly secured. It is going absolutely nowhere. Here is our Speedy Bee stack. We are not having GPS on this, at least not at this time.